that's what led to this day today.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So are you gonna punk me?
You're getting punked.
Really? How are you gonna punk me?
I'm gonna make you look like an asshole.
Really?
Which isn't hard to do.
Is that really the case?
No.
Okay.
It's meant to be. Well, I mean, part of me feels like you might be being disingenuous by saying you don't remember.
I legit don't remember. 100% serious.
Really?
Yeah.
You just like, is it because you're, doing so much that you just sort of forget all the bridges you burn and all the like people you fuck with?
Did I burn a bridge with that?
I could have been, but I'm a resilient person, so I turned that hate into a passion for filmmaking, which is why I'm here.
What you are watching right now is two autistic individuals who low-key are the same person but from different timelines have an interaction. Now, if you don't know, Sam Hyde is basically the king of 4chan. He's basically their centerpiece. Paul looks at him like the Jesus Christ come again, which is hilarious because like most of his videos is mostly satire and retardation. But then again, that's how 4chan started off, and now it's actually legit Nazis. I know because I go there. But what's hilarious is that the context for this is that iDubbbz is shooting one of his documentaries. If you've ever seen Full Force or anything like that, he's trying to go and speak to Sam Hyde and kind of create a documentary around it, and he's interviewing him, and he starts off the interview with a very awkward comment where he says, "Sam, do you remember the first time we had an interaction?" He's like, "No." And he's like, "Listen, you copyrighted my video and then sent me an email and said, if you want me to unblock your video, send me a video of you doing a full parallel squat with 200 pounds, which is fucking hilarious. And iDubbbz brought it up in a kind of weird, awkward way where he's like, do you not remember, who you burn your bridges with, blah, blah, blah. I think he did it half jokingly and half because like for certain things that certain people do, they might take it as more significant than others. So for Sam Hyde, he probably was like, this is some dickhead on YouTube who he doesn't know. He's like, let me just email him really quickly and just fuck with him. And then iDubbbz is like some small YouTuber who's getting an email from the Sam Hyde at the time, and he's like, why would he do this? Why would he slate me? It's like when Howard Stern used to bitch, moan, cry, and complain when fucking Don Imus was bullying him because he wasn't nice to him. It's like he met his idol and was like, how did you slate me, right? So this is how this interview portion goes, right? This video is about 2 hours long. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty mundane. I like it. It's a pretty good video. But it's not very fairly well edited, and Sam kind of explains that in the beginning. He's like, we're just going to drop these clips because we think it's funny. We're going to try to put it together. But if you watch this entire video, it's very funny in a completely different way because it's two individuals who have different intentions about what they're trying to do and what they're trying to get out of each other in terms of content. But neither one really knows how to communicate that in a healthy way. Instead, they hope that they fall into it. And what I mean by that is, so iDubbbz started off this interview with this statement where he's like, I just want to share this. This is how we started. And Sam Hyde at an hour and 3 minutes says, okay, let's move on, right? But it actually bothered him a lot. It actually made him brood about it. And about 10 minutes later, out of nowhere, he brings up what he said earlier because it bothered him.
You had been upfront about that. Because I honestly don't like when I have like static with people. And I brought you here and I was like, I want to help Ian make a cool video for his channel that will like entertain his fans. I like the Dax Flame. I like that you're bringing Dax Flame out because I used to like his videos back in the day. And I was like, all right, we'll do everything with Ian. We're going to go shoot guns. We're going to get cars. We're going to fucking bring the slingshot out, which you loved. Okay, you said, that's my Ferrari. That's my baby Ferrari. I wish you just told me, like, just hit me up at the beginning and been like, hey, there's this thing. It's like, beef over.
Yeah, in fairness, like...
You should have just told me that. Dude.
Yeah, no, but I thought it would be really good here.
Okay.
To be a reveal.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't have anything else to connect.
I just hope that you're not actually, like, if you actually were upset about that, I would want to, like, heal that.
Right. No, not at all.
All right.
So they bring it up again, they have another conversation about it, which is hilarious, because it's amazing how fragile people's fucking, like, feelings can be, because I remember, like watching this, and I'm like, that was such a weird thing to bring up, like, I wouldn't even think about it, but Sam was kind of like, under the impression of like, why is he bringing this up? Does he think I'm a bully? Is he trying to quote unquote punk me? And I think it's kind of funny that iDubbbz is talking to him, but isn't really necessarily listening to what he's saying, but rather trying to get what he wants to get out of him. And that's not a slight against iDubbbz. I mean, people have different interviewing techniques. They have different things. But what Sam Hyde just said, and he said it throughout this interview multiple times, is that he's like, I wanted to try to have a fun time with you. I wanted to present all this different information. And as a matter of fact, the way that this video begins is that he has a list of funny things he wants to do to like prank iDubbbz and make the video funny and be like, oh, I'm going to pretend like I'm rapping. Oh, I'm going to pretend like my new career is I'm going to be a rapper, and that I have all these different quirks where I think Pokemon is doing, like, just a bunch of silly things. But what's funny is that iDubbbz, at this point in time, this would have been a perfect point of time for him to explain his intentions, because I don't think Sam Hyde really watches his content that much or really gets the vibe of what he's trying to do. If you look at iDubbbz's old Full Force documentary, it's more of a behind-the-scenes, like behind-the-music type shit, where he talks to people, he tries to get their quote-unquote real feelings, their real personality, how they feel about certain things. And that's something that iDubbbz actually does bring up in the future.
To be 100% serious, does it have anything to do with the fact that you're like, you don't want to kind of ruin the magic of like your persona? Or
I don't think there's magic. I'm just trying to do what's most entertaining.
Yeah. And oftentimes that comes like, I guess would you say that like that's a place of comfort, to be like more on when the cameras are on and being less?
It's mad uncomfortable. It's mad annoying. I hate shit.
So iDubbbz basically opens up this branch of conversation to try to get an idea of why Sam Hyde is always kooky, crazy, talking about fucking Ross clothing. And it's kind of him hinting, saying like, this interview is supposed to be more serious. Can you be more serious? Like, I'm trying to see the real you, quote unquote. And that is something that I think iDubbbz should do in the future. The next time he, quote unquote, links up with someone, explain the format of his show, because just from watching the few things I've seen, I think the intention of what he's doing with this is that he wants to do like basically an explanation of the person, not so much, oh, I'm going there to film funny content, we're going to make a funny video, but basically try to find their kind of like true self, or their true feelings, or the true information, kind of like in the actor studio type shit, but for YouTubers. Like, for example, in the past, iDubbbz has made videos with Filthy Frank where they eat hair pies and then throw up, but if you were to do this documentary with fucking Joji or Filthy Frank in the future, he'd probably say, hey, what was it like leaving YouTube behind to start music? Do you miss it? Like, things like that. I think that's what iDubbbz wants to do and what he's interested in when he does these type of videos. And I feel like he never expressed that. Like, I think he either A, doesn't want to format the show and be like a corporate individual, which I understand, but at the same time, if you don't say that, no one knows what the format of your show is, especially someone like Sam Hyde. He supposedly doesn't watch YouTube, so he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And at the same time, he should have thought about the fact that Sam Hyde, unlike the Full Force dude, is kind of like an entertainer, and he's trying to come off, as he says here, entertaining. So if he doesn't guide him down the road of saying, listen, like, the reason why I want to talk to you is because, yeah, I want to have fun with you, we can go and do some fun shit, but at the same time, I'm trying to find out your inner workings, the way you feel, and the different items that you go down. And at the same time, in defense of Sam and his points that were brought up, I think iDubbbz does I don't want to say he does a bad job, but he definitely steers the conversation away from what I'm interested in personally, and what I think a lot of people are interested in with Sam Hyde, which is the idea of censorship. Because Sam Hyde lost his TV show, he lost most of his Hollywood contacts, he lost pretty much any of an online presence in terms of monetization, and he actually goes into this, and I feel like iDubbbz didn't do a good job of exploring the point, because he doesn't really do much with it as much as I would like. So this is what he says.
No, there's no. I will never be on TV ever again.
Maybe not TV, but TV's the way of the past.
YouTube too. Anything that's monetized, anything that's Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, whatever. It's not. None of those are options. Even though we got 1 million viewers per episode of World Peace, and fucking Mike Lazo said we're gonna shoot 100 episodes of this. You guys are the next Tim and Eric. You're the future of Adult Swim, etc. It's just all done. It's none of those venues are a possible path for us. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I just kind of feel like I've had aspirations of like being on Netflix or Hulu or whatever else, but I'm finding that YouTube is good enough, and it is like doing the trick for me. And
so after this, iDubbbz goes on to say that you could just stay on YouTube, it might be good enough, etc., etc. And Sam Hyde continues to say that no, if I become big enough, I'm going to be like Alex Jones, just get banned. And then they move on. Now, I think that one thing that iDubbbz could have done a better job on is expanding on the points that Sam makes instead of relating it to himself, which is fine. It's a conversation. You can say whatever you want. But me personally, I'm extremely interested that he's going on and saying that I've basically been blacklisted. I can't have a TV show. I can't have a YouTube channel. I can't have a Twitter account. I can't have any presence online. And later on, iDubbbz doesn't really expand into this, but Sam says, I don't look at comments anymore. I can't really have a community with my fans, so I don't look at it. I distance myself from the internet. I hate the internet, or he's just not a fan of it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's not able to be a part of it. He can be a lurker. You know how they say people lurk, but don't post. But he probably doesn't like that. He probably he probably sees things on YouTube where he's like, oh, I wish I could make a video on that, but I'll probably get terminated, so what's the point? So it sounds like Sam is defeated. It sounds like he's like, there's no point. There's literally no point in doing this. There's no reason in changing this. I've already been marked as an anti-Semite by some people, as a racist by some people. Like, whatever the moniker is that would blackball him, that's what he's accepted, and he's basically been in a slump. iDubbbz doesn't really explore this, at least from the video that's been posted. And I think there's a lot of issues with this interview style and a lot of issues with them, because I think iDubbbz fucked up by going to Sam Hyde for this documentary first. He should have, like, A, explained the format and tried to say what I'm trying to get out of this, and B, maybe done a little bit more research in terms of, like, where he is now and what has led to it, and try to expand on that, because a lot of the questions are very, from what I've seen, very shallow. Very like, what is the most proud piece of content you are? And what's funny is that in the beginning, he says that. He's like, what is the most proud piece of content you're proud of? And Sam says, he gets defensive. He says, I don't want to say it because I don't know if you're going to attack me with it after that whole like email shit. He's like, if I say, oh, one of my proudest clips is this, and then you say, oh, you know, this is actually extremely sexist, homophobic, whatever, like to flip it on him. So already he lost trust in the person he's interviewing, and it just was shit. Like, this was really bad. And I think iDubbbz realizes that. He looked at this and decided not to post it. And the reason why this video even exists is because Sam Hyde is like, dude, we did this like 9 months ago. We spent money. We spent time. Like, are you going to release the documentary or are you not? I emailed you. I asked you. You never responded. It's probably because iDubbbz is like, I don't know what the fuck to do with this. Like, should I put on my second channel as a vlog? Nah, maybe I can save this and do this again. Maybe I could do a version 2, maybe reiterate on it. Or maybe he's just ghosting him because it was awkward, or he didn't want to talk about it, or there was some inconsistency. But through and throughout this, I'd have to say that the motif or reoccurring theme would definitely be that Sam Hyde and iDubbbz suck at communicating. Straight off the bat, I mean, coming out here, you had people with two different intentions. iDubbbz's intention was to come here and do a documentary, try to do a behind the scenes, try to figure out his life, what he's doing, etc. Sam Hyde had the idea of like, oh, iDubbbz is a YouTuber, I like him, he's funny, I'm going to come out here, I'm going to do wacky stuff and like have studio sessions where we're rapping and like, this is what I'm doing in my life now, not actually showing what he's actually doing. Obviously, he's not a rapper. iDubbbz was probably interested in say like, oh, you used to be a filmmaker, someone who did this, now what do you do? And it's like, that actually is very interesting because of the 3 people, $1 Million Extreme, Sam Hyde continued to make content online. One of his co-hosts ended up becoming a Twitch streamer, and then another one just sells rugs. Like, he's a salesman for rugs, or he owns the rug shop. And, like, that's crazy. Like, these people that were going to be the quote-unquote next Tim and Eric got canceled, got kicked off because they were quote-unquote too political. Now their lives have been, not ruined, but it's completely different from the trajectory it could have been. They could have been rich. They could have been famous. They could have been whatever it was. And I think that iDubbbz really didn't look into that, and he should have looked into that, because I think that'd be the most interesting piece of this. But at the same time, he never communicated that to Sam Hyde. They never had a conversation. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like to me iDubbbz showed up and was like, okay, hopefully this goes the way I want it to, but I'm not going to communicate about it. And then even after the fact, iDubbbz looked over the footage, looked at the fact that it's just a bunch of memey stuff, him shooting guns randomly. Like, it's really boring, to be honest. Like, there's no structure. Like, they keep repeating certain things over and over again. And it's like, for a duration of a documentary of 50 minutes, this video is like 2 hours, but over the duration of 50 minutes, you can only pretend to be a rapper before, like, you know, it just gets like corny. Like it's like, okay, LOL, you're a rapper. Like I don't know, like unless you package it differently, it was just weird. So I think that iDubbbz realized, he's like, okay, these guys aren't really telling me what they do day to day. They're not really showing me the behind the scenes. This kind of defeats the whole purpose of what I wanted to do with this documentary. This kind of changes everything. This basically becomes a bunch of random content that doesn't really have any goals or any real format. And he just scrapped it more than likely, or he was going to do it again. And again, what's funny is that they failed to communicate yet again, because afterwards Sam Hyde messages him and is like, oh, you know, are you going to drop the documentary? What are you doing? And then iDubbbz, I guess, is busy or just ghosts him and is like, nah, I don't really know. Like, it just seems like a real awkward relationship. Like, I don't know why they have such a weird thing where, like, they love each other, but at the same time, they feel like they're not getting what they want to get out of each other. iDubbbz feels like he's not getting the information he wants, and Sam Hyde feels like he's not reciprocating that funny ha-ha energy, where he's like, yo, I'm a rapper, LOL, and then iDubbbz isn't sitting there trying to spit fucking 16 bars and get it on his album, right? So I think all in all, this is a great example of what happens when two men fail to communicate, and it's basically them just hoping that the other one like wanders into their line of thinking and they get on the same page. So, and what's funny is that Sam Hyde posted this hour and 55-minute video because he's like, I don't know what iDubbbz is doing. I have no idea what he's doing. There's no communication, and I feel like this is funny content. I want to post it. And he releases it, and it's like kind of like a fake exposed video. I mean, I've seen some videos like by Turkey Tom where he's like, Sam Hyde just exposed iDubbbz. It's kind of whatever. It's kind of like them saying that they don't know how to communicate to each other, because Sam literally says, like, I message him, he doesn't respond, and then I don't know. It's just some weird shit where, like, they're not on the same page. And it's unfortunate, because this was actually something that would be very interesting, because there's been a lot of speculation. There's been a lot of secondhand documentaries and a lot of, you know, speculation around $1 Million Extreme, the different information, the different bits and pieces, especially around them getting blacklisted, them getting canceled, the political issues of the 2016 election basically dooming them. And I think this would have been interesting to ask a little bit more of in the interview with him, just to figure out more information, because it is a legitimate concern. And at the same time, I think iDubbbz wanted to touch on this but didn't really dive into it when he said that you can package things differently. Like, he didn't really say, like, you're a little too extreme or you're off the beaten path or whatever, but there's two things he said. One, you could package things differently, and two, how do you feel about fans who interpret your content? So, for example, so Sam says that people who interpret his content as, like, having meaning or different things are stupid. You're not a real fan if you think that, you know, if there's, like, a funny racist thing and you think it's actually racist, you're stupid. But there's certain things that, content-wise, that are so blatantly, like, racist and anti-Semitic, and it's, like, almost hard to not see it as an allegory. So, for example, there's a bit that they were going to put on the TV where a white guy is pushing a rock up the hill. He finds a black guy, a Mexican, and then eventually gets to the final boss, which is some Jewish guy who says, LOL, you push this rock up the hill, this is your society, and we've ruined it. Now, this is obviously anti-Semitic. This actually goes with, like, the whole politically incorrect narrative. And I think that one thing that Sam does that is a mistake to some degree, like, not in terms of his content, but in terms of the explanation, is thinking that people are smart enough to understand satire. Because, like, one meme of 4chan has always been that people pretend to be racist, but there's actually legit racists there. So he doesn't realize that people see videos like this and will use it as propaganda. They'll use it as anti-Semitic, anti-black, anti-whatever. And I think that, you know, at the very least, if iDubbbz was more specific or had more questions that were more specific around the content, he might get a better response or a little bit more information. But all in all, that's kind of off the beaten path. I'm a little disappointed. I think iDubbbz made the right decision by not posting the video, because I think it wouldn't have been in line with his regular documentary style. But at the same time, I think it's his fault. Like, he should have said, this is the information I want, this is how I want to structure it, this is how I want it to come off of, and these are the questions I really want answered. Instead, you get a completely disorganized, fucking meandering conversation that literally lasts the span about 4 or 5 days. And this interview is only one of the days. It's not like a multi-interview thing from what I've seen. All in all, terrible execution. I mean, this is like if you had fucking Donald Trump at your disposal and you sat down with him and was like, hey, Donald, I don't know if you remember this, but one time you banned me on Twitter. Like, why'd you do that? How do you feel about that? And then you went on to talk about the fucking... the goddamn, what was the fucking show? What was the show he was on? The Apprentice. Like, you just talked about The Apprentice for an hour. It's like, what the fuck? You had Donald Trump in the room with you. Like, you couldn't have any better questions? Like, what the fuck kind of shitty interview is this? So, at the end of the day, I don't know what to say. Right now, you're looking at Charmeleon talk to Charizard. They both butt heads. They both don't know how to fucking communicate. And it's unfortunate, man. 2021 was pretty shit. This would have been some sick content to drop. But instead, I gotta go back to watching Rick and Morty reruns and hope that that will embiggen my brain.
At the end of every single video, make sure you ask people to rate and subscribe to your content. It makes them feel like they're involved even though they're really not. And most importantly, make sure they comment on every single video. If you have to, disguise it. You know, call it something like the question of the day. And really make them think you're gonna really read it when you really don't have to. Ha ha ha!